Warning.
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 Warning. You are entering into the unplugged mind of Paul Clough. Too late. Personal Development Unplugged.
Hey, welcome to the Personal Development Unplugged podcast with me, Paul Clough. And this is an FMQ, a 5-minute quickie podcast, which never lasts 5 minutes. It always goes a little bit longer. But it's a chance for you and I just to muse, to think of a subject, to talk about it for a few minutes, and then spend time thinking, seeing how it would change our life if we maybe developed it a little deeper. And maybe sometimes these 5-minute quickies will go into a longer podcast where we can dive deeper and produce processes, hypnosis processes, NLP processes. Don't worry about the names. They're just processes for making our life and your life absolutely better. Getting rid of anxiety, fear, all those other hang-ups and issues that we have, and have the life we deserve and make dreams come into reality quicker, bigger, better than you could ever dream of. But they're the longer podcasts, and this is a 5-minute quickie where we break down the complicated into simple, because in simplicity there's genius. And that's what we do here. So if you want to just think for a little while, see what happens, see what resonates inside you. And when it does, you go change the world. Hey friend, the 5-minute quickie. And this is something, well, put it this way. Have you ever had an idea and you think, what a brilliant idea that is? Yeah, I'll do that. I'm a bit busy at the moment, but I'll do that. I'll make a note of it later. And what happens? Other stuff happens, yeah? And when other stuff happens, that idea seems to disappear, doesn't it? I don't know whether it falls out, but sometimes I don't even remember them at all. It happens to me that way. Or maybe you're listening to something and someone says something and you go, wow, that is such a good thing. I'll make a note of that. And I sometimes do that. I have Evernote or I have a little note on my phone. I'll do that. But if I'm in the gym, I tend to forget about it. And I don't know how to get over that part, but I'm going to give you a thought in a moment. But maybe when you're reading a book, now some people don't like making notes in books, but you can with a pencil. But you could, well, have a think in a minute. You could make a note somewhere, because I've read a book and I thought, I've read a book. I've read, well, more than one book, just a couple. But as I'm reading a particular book, maybe I get this, I get a thought. I think that's a great saying. I don't know, on Kindle you can highlight it, but then I forget to look at the highlights because I don't know how to export them and things like that, so they just disappear. So I don't make a note. And if it's a proper book, I have real trouble writing in a book because I love my books. And I sometimes think that I'm defacing or insulting the author by making notes in there. But maybe that's what they'd like. But that wonderful idea, that little bit of, oh, that's brilliant, seems to disappear. Sometimes they do come back, but maybe they just disappear forever. And what a shame that would be. What a shame it is. I know I've lost a few ideas along the way. And then the other day I was listening to a podcast and this person was saying something I thought was really arrogant. I thought it was at the time. I've apologised in my head and taken it back. And I'll tell you for why. They were talking, they were going, right, before I say anything, you really need to get your a podcast book to take notes of this particular this particular episode. Because there's so much you need to take notes of. You really do have to take notes. And I thought, well, who are you to say that I need to take notes? So I got offended of a sort, because I don't like being told what to do. But then I thought to myself, a little while later, it's a bloody good idea, really. I've got my puzzle book that I flogged to death over here, telling you about my puzzle book, where I sit and muse about things, ask myself questions, get it out on paper. And I thought to myself, that is a bloody good idea to have a book. And it only needs to be one of those tiny 3x2 books, doesn't it? That you can put in your pocket and write it down. You can have it on your phone, but just when you're listening, maybe you don't want to keep typing, but it's very quickly just to write in a little notebook. So it's difficult when you're driving a car, I know, and you might just have to make a note, by recording it, but then putting it into a journal of some kind that records your notes, your thoughts, your intuitions from a podcast. The golden nuggets, I always ask, what type of golden nuggets did you find today? And I was thinking about that, thinking, well, maybe you did, but maybe you forgot them. Because as you found one and then another came along, that first one just plopped out your head. And how can we keep them? And I thought to myself, that's a very good idea to have a podcast notebook that I could take with me and then put it into a puzzle book, put it into, if you're doing anything online, maybe you're doing some blogging or you're doing a YouTube or just for yourself in your diary or whatever, you could start to make a difference because you start to learn. And because we always say it's not just the understanding, the knowing, it's the doing. Well, sometimes we understand it and then we forget about it. So we don't get a chance to do the doing. But if we write it down, then we can schedule it because we've got a note. Because we have, I would think, this is what I would do. I would have to have a time when I'd go through that particular book and then transfer it into something to schedule, something to remember. I know I do that with my journals. I know there's some interesting stuff in there. So I'll wait for the end of the week and then I'll read them through and just find out the stuff. Because I remember I've talked to you about one of my journal thoughts were, things weren't happening for me. And I got this bit of intuition said, well, why didn't you look through the puzzle books you've been doing? And I went through the puzzle books and I found out there were little golden nuggets in each little puzzle I've been going through. And when you put them together, it created something, I can work with this now. Because I had all the answers, but they weren't in the same bloody place. And this could be like that. So I thought it was a wonderful idea. And I thought, cheekily, was going to create a podcast notebook for you, the Personal Development Unplugged podcast book. And you could put then other ones in the back as well. And we could have it all made up with Personal Development Unplugged notebook on the front. And it would be all blank pages in the middle. So I think we can buy our own book, can't we? But I really think you do. Get one of those tiny little ones. Stick a little pencil in there and just make notes and then go through them at the end. What do you think? Go through it. When I said go through them at the end, go through them at the end of the week or go through them at the end of that day. Even better, Cluffy. Now you go. Now you're working. Just because then you're just like defragging your day and you're going through, I've got that. I'll put that over there. Put that on do like a Ryan Holiday. Put it on a little index card and I'll remember that. It's another good way to do it. But you're transferring it into something which could be more permanent, but you've got something which is just there. So you never forget anything. Or you never forget anything important from a podcast. And then you could add to it from the books you read or a video you see because you've got that little book. And now it becomes the Personal Development Unplugged podcast notebook and others. Got to have the first bit. I know this has gone over 5 minutes. It's something is totally off the top of my head. I was doing a bit of editing and I thought, you know what? I want to remember this. So let's take some action. Now, if you, like me, will take action and get that little book, let's get going. And then we can take notes of everything and use them. And then we can become a master of the things that we learn. Because when we become a master, it's not only knowing what to do, but doing what you know. Ooh. Because that's what we're going to do then. Okay? If you think that's a good idea, please let me know. Feedback at personaldevelopmentunplugged.com. If you think it's a bonky idea, do let me know. And maybe if you have another way, just email me and let's share them all together. Okay? Anyway, it's time to go because this is like a 10-minute, 5-minute quickie. So on your way and go and get that book. Bye-bye now.
Warning, you are now leaving the unplugged mind of Paul Clough. It's time to fly on your own. Be brave, my friend.
Personal Development Unplugged.